Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. My co-host Robin and I are beyond thrilled to week after week bring you voices, messages, and impact women are creating in this world so that we build a sustainable society, human community in a way that behooves us, our children, and our grandchildren. And you are going to absolutely love today's conversation. We're going to be talking about the importance of women owning their power, showing up in their confidence, and believing and becoming whoever they want to be. Because every woman has the ability to live her dream and live that dream in her own power. Take it away, Robin.
Awesome. I'm so thrilled to have Angela Trego with us, Dr. Angela Trego. And we met at a Women in Business conference that was hosted by the women in the BYU MBA program. And we're standing in line and just chatting. And she talked about that she's literally a rocket scientist. And now she's helping women develop their confidence and get over imposter syndrome and those sorts of things. And I was completely intrigued that, what is this journey, first of all, to becoming a rocket scientist and then moving into this way of helping women. And so for me, that's my first question is being an engineer, number one, being a rocket scientist, number two, is such a male dominated field. How did you get into that? And then what was the morphing into then helping other women?
Yeah, and Dr. Henry and Robin, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this. Uh, Honestly, I'm going to start off with telling you my story that becoming an engineer was actually kind of by accident. I didn't think that that's what I was going to do. In fact, in high school, I was took a class in drafting and architectural drawing and started to work for an architect in high school. And I loved that ability to design things. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I got to my senior year in high school and I realized that to become an architect, you had to go to a 5-year program and do a lengthy apprenticeship before you could become an architect. And in my mind, I said, I don't want to go to school that long. What should I do? So I started looking at what my other career options were, and I loved math. I loved physics. I loved this idea of designing. And my father, who's also a technical individual, was like, why don't you think about mechanical engineering? Instead of designing homes, you'd just be designing things. So I looked into that and was like, oh, hey, actually, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I could still do that design aspect, but I could use that math and physics that I really love. So I started going down that process. Now, the irony of my story is that I actually ended up getting both a master's and a PhD. So I went to college for a significantly longer amount than the 4 years to get my PhD and start to become a rocket scientist.
That's funny. The length of study was what changed your mind, and then you fell so much in love with it that you went all the way. It's
Yeah.
amazing how our destiny kind of takes us where we are supposed to be. So, in your journey, you have learned how to evolve, how to embrace what comes naturally for you, and with that confidence, go out into the world and become whoever you were meant to be. How are you taking your own journey and your roadmap and then applying that to help women?
Yeah, so I love the fact that you talked about it takes confidence to make that journey and that step. And I didn't have that confidence to begin with. Uh, Even though I had a PhD from a reputable school, I went to work for the Boeing company. And with that, I worked at PhantomWorks, which is their research arm and division. And they had not hired anybody into that division for a very long time. So I walked on to my first day on the job, and not only was I the only woman out of 200 engineers, but I was also a good 10 to 15 years younger than everybody else. So I really struggled with the imposter syndrome, right? Oh my gosh, I don't belong here. I'm sure that they hired the wrong person. Wow. And it took me a long time. I didn't know that it was the imposter syndrome. I just struggled with this lack of confidence. And I was able to work through using a lot of different tools to kind of overcome that and find tools that helped me so that imposter syndrome and that lack of confidence wasn't defining who I was, but instead I could find that confidence, which would allow me to step forward and start to realize what are things that I can do and how can I have an impact. As I continued through that journey of realizing also that careers aren't ladders, careers are journeys. And sometimes you go down, and sometimes you go up, and sometimes you go across. But finding those different things that allow you to have options and growth really start to give you a better understanding of who you are as a woman and how you can help others. If you would have told me even 15 years ago, Angela, you're going to be out, have your own company where you're working with increasing the number of women in STEM and business, I would have said no, right? But started out in aerospace, being a rocket scientist. I started to realize that I enjoyed developing people more than things. And so I started to gravitate towards doing that. And that led me to go into management. I love the developing of people. Then I was like, well, I love teaching. So I went over into teaching. And I was loving having the impact out on the youth and finding ways to help instill confidence in them. All the while helping with women and starting to realize that, number one, I created a unique perspective in engineering that the men didn't bring. Not better or worse, but different, which allowed us to create a much better solution. And seeing that we needed more women. And many of the women weren't going into these fields because they did lack the confidence. It does take a bit to step into a room where you're the only one and say, I can provide value and input here. And so finally, at one point in time, I realized that this was my passion, really what I wanted to do. And I said, I'm gonna take that leap and I'm gonna take that confidence. And I started my own business actually about 10 years ago, where really working on the imposter syndrome with both women that are in business, but also with the youth and those individuals that are growing up, to find ways and giving them tools to help them find that confidence so that they can figure out what that path is and understand that all of these experiences that come together for them can actually create a very unique situation to find something that's better than they even ever thought they might have.
That is an absolutely fascinating journey. I loved hearing all of the ins and outs as you've described. And what question popped up in my head as I was listening? What are some of the core things that helped you work through to become more confident? And then how have you then tweaked that to be able to now be helping other women?
I think there's a lot of different tools at different times and different scenarios that helped. Too often people think that you can eliminate the lack of confidence or eliminate imposter syndrome, and that's not true. Um, will always struggle with it to some degree, but to what degree that is. But being able to acknowledge and understand that and work with mentors, hearing somebody that you value and trust say, no, you can do this. You've got this. You have those skills really helps a lot. Um, as I progressed in my career, I got to experience and mentor a lot of different individuals in their careers and different experiences. And with that, I got to see different perspectives and different things that worked. And not everything works for every person, right? Um, so that kind of was that that along with the fact that as I studied imposter syndrome, I realized two key factors. One, everybody thinks that they're the only one that has imposter syndrome. And two, just about everybody experiences imposter syndrome. And so that really set the foundation for writing this book of, I want to squash the imposter syndrome, right? Let's give people these tools because it's a lot more common than we realize. And let's put something down on paper that can actually be used and applied as a reference tool time and time again.
That's interesting that you continued to study people's journey. And as a researcher, as a scientist, as a scholar, you're bringing all of your skills to then shape the journey you're giving people, right? So that's the interesting part to me that jumps out. Very, very similar background, so I can see the journey you're taking as you're explaining. What comes to my mind is there are societies that raise daughters from cradle in letting them know they can be whatever they want to be. And then there are societies that give girls dolls and kitchen toys to play with and tell them what a girl is. How does that psychologically shape and set the stage for what the girls face as they become women versus what can we do with parenting process and cultural shifts so that we don't have to do this coaching and imposter syndrome fixing and all of these other things because those are created through the raising of a child.
Yeah, um, I think imposter syndrome can certainly be culturally instigated. It could be instigated from the family. It can just be instigated internally. There's a lot of different reasons and aspects why we experience imposter syndrome. Um, what are things we can do to help with that as a culture and a parent? I think certainly is finding ways to just instill confidence in our children. As individuals, sometimes we can't change the world, but we can certainly change those around us and help create positive influences, even if it's just that one, so that we can help make that next generation just a little bit better. I think the idea of it's a balance, also, I believe. Yes, we want to make sure that girls and women understand that they can do anything they want to, but I also want girls and women to understand that we are different than men. We have unique qualities and differences that allow us to do different things and be complementary. And that is something that we need to embrace and show that confidence in those areas that, yeah, I am a woman. I don't have to act like a man to be successful in engineering. I need to bring my innate womanhood to that and my smarts to help create the best person possible.
I'm loving what you're saying is that we don't have to act like a man to be successful. Because I know that when I was in the MBA program 41 years ago, that there very much was, you need to act like a man if you're going to be successful. So all the women are putting on gray suits, and all of that. And so I'm wondering, just in looking at that as a lens, you had also mentioned that you had some good mentors. And so I was going to ask, how did you find, or how did they find you, the men who were your allies, who were being your mentors? Because obviously, if you're the only woman in the room, then you've got to have some male friends, some male colleagues, some male mentors. And how did all of that play out in such a, I was going to say horrifically dominated. I guess I don't need to use that word, in such a male dominated environment.
Yeah, I've had some amazing men that have been allies in my career and my life in general, and I so appreciate that male allyship that has helped me because let's be honest, in the world still, men are tend to be the decision makers in companies, CEOs, right? And until that changes, we definitely need that male allyship and finding those individuals that can champion for creating visibility and networking and mentoring opportunities for women. Some individuals were as a result of a relationship. One of my longtime dearest mentors that I still talk with today is my PhD advisor. And Dr. Eastman is a man, but he has a soft heart for helping women in engineering. And he's been a great guide to provide different insight and always be a listening board and a voice of reason and confidence to help. And someone that I could say, okay, this is the situation. What was this man thinking, right? Or what happened here? And how do I navigate these things? And creating that open and honest relationship really was super helpful to me. Sometimes mentoring, though, is very organic. I have a gentleman that was a coworker and started to just pick his brain on different things on how to move up to that next level. And he provided a lot of great insight for me through our working relationship and just that organic, I'm a friend and now let's talk and move forward. And he became a great ally and champion. There's a lot of times where you need somebody in a meeting to say, hey, Dr. Trego, what do you think about that? To help give that opportunity and option to be heard. And don't limit yourself to one mentor, I think is one piece of feedback I have. And number two is these can be formal and they can be very informal, and both work very well.
It's funny how time flies when we are having interesting conversations. So before we move any further, I would love for you to do two things. One, take a moment and let our audience know how they can find you, how they can engage with you. And two, what nugget of wisdom do you want to leave our audience with today?
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's see which side, right here. You can go to my website, angelatrego.com, and I have all my information about whether working for organizations or educators. I do kind of a dual focus where I work with faculty on teaching them engagement methodologies to instill confidence in their students. And I work with organizations on unconscious bias, working with women's groups. I do a lot of speaking and keynotes, but all that information is on my website. You can also buy my book, Squashing the Imposter Syndrome. My nugget, I think my nugget is always take a step back, take a deep breath, and start to truly assess what your skills and capabilities are and find ways to increase your confidence. My book has tools that you can use, and if you use them on a daily basis to really change how you think, small changes can make big differences in your confidence. Confidence is not a soft idea that you just innately have, but confidence is a skill and something that you can work on. So I ask you to work on your confidence and embrace your confidence so that you can do the amazing things that you were meant to do.
Thank you so much. Love the insight, love the passion you bring to the subject, and love the story. What an amazing journey. What an amazing story. And to our audience out there, you just heard Dr. Angela Trego talk about the importance of building confidence. And she also reminded you to take a step back and take a deep breath. So as you bring this podcast hearing to a close, why don't you take a deep breath and step back and assess what is getting in between you and your ability to live life and take your journey with confidence? And if you need help, you know who to contact, you know where to get in touch with her. And we wish you a confident journey into your future so that you too can live your purpose without apologies, without an imposter syndrome, with total joy and confidence to truly embrace it.